This is Zach Solo. He's the co-host here at the BuzzPod. He plays for the Toronto Marlies.
Oh yeah, I was researching him, man. Top 10 in points this year on his team. I was watching him.
132 PIMs too. Watch out for this guy.
Yeah, you like that top three.
I like that, man. And you know what? You got a look to you, bro. I was Googling you, and I was like, you got like a media look to you. Like, I don't know what it is, but you're doing something with TV after your career. I could see it.
All right, man. Well, I'm game for it. I'm game for it. Nice to meet you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, let me read this quick intro and get us going.
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome back to the BuzzPod. This is episode 108. Joining us today is a man who put together the baddest team in hockey, the main character in the best Netflix documentary ever made, Untold Crimes and Penalties. It is our pleasure to welcome AJ Galante to the BuzzPod. Thank you for joining us, AJ.
Oh man, thank you, brother. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. It means a lot.
How you doing, man? What are you up to these days?
Man, I don't know. Every day's an adventure. I'm at the point where there's like too many irons in the fire right now, and it's just trying to, just like you guys trying to catch up to you guys on episodes with this podcast game. It's crazy, man. Just trying a little bit of everything, man. I got a boxing job. I've been in the boxing business now, God, going on I've 13 and a half years now. I got my gym here, work with a lot of fighters, work with a lot of the kids. And yeah, man, ever since this documentary, slowly, I was afraid of it, slowly kind of falling in love again with hockey again. So I don't know where things are going, but it's always an adventure. Each day I don't know where the wind's gonna blow me, man.
I love to hear that. I feel like actually, we'll talk about the doc later, but since that doc released, fighting's kind of back, man, and I appreciate you. I'm super grateful for it. You know what I mean? Guy like me is so thankful that doc came out and people love fighting. So
listen, I love to take credit because I've been looking at the statistics since, it's pure coincidence, but I've been watching the statistics of fighting and majors and stuff like that since the doc. So I love to personally take some like 1% of credit of it, man. It's
definitely.
It's such an important part of the game. I know people don't understand it. I know it's listen, man, it's a different time in general. To me, sports always kind of reflects where society is. I think things are a little softer, and I think it reflects it in sports. And it is what it is, but I just think it's just something that makes hockey so great. And yeah, guys like you, guys, like Diamond Hands, like these people are in love with the fighters, man. You guys are the best locker room guys. I just can't envision hockey without it. You know what I mean? And it's tough to try to digest, if that ever happened. But no, man, I think it's great. And not just the fighting too, just the physicality of hockey. You see the NHL playoffs now, these guys are running around. I love it, man. It's what makes the sport so great, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned you're in boxing now, and we're going to talk a ton about fighting later on. I got a ton of questions for you. And you mentioned boxing, and you've been in the boxing business for 13 years. You have a boxing gym. What's the day-to-day like for you? Are you training these kids? And how similar is running that boxing gym to being a GM of the Trashers, or what things did you take from being a GM that have helped you in this boxing biz?
Boxing and hockey, man, it couldn't be, believe it or not, so opposite. Boxing is like the Wild West, man. It is so crazy, this sport. But, learning from my father, especially with the Trashers, I was so young, but I was learning a lot and, putting the deep end early. I just always remember him saying, AJ, no matter what in life, you got to manage personalities. You know what I mean? Man, in your locker room, you have 20 guys and literally all 20 could be different. So one of the biggest things I learned from a quote management perspective is how you lead one guy may be completely different than you leading another guy. How you motivate guys. Everybody's different, and you got to learn that one strategy may not work for everyone. And I learned that a lot. And that's what I do with the boxing is we got boxers. So I'm not a trainer. So what I do is I basically do all the the back end stuff. You know, I help set up fights, you know, scout this, help set up, you know, all the things. These guys, it's like being a glorified babysitter, bro. It's like setting up physicals, setting up, you know, when they're mad at their girlfriends and they get kicked out of the house, you know, stuff like everything, man. It's but we have a great team, and I just let the trainers worry about training, and I do my end. And but yeah, the managing personalities, because I mean, I got guys I work with that you could bark at a little bit and they'll be okay, you know, they'll get over it. But if I bark at this guy, this other guy, he's gonna shut down. He's not, you know, you have to, you know, massage it a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's definitely that's definitely something I learned with the Trashers for sure. And yeah, that's probably the biggest takeaway. You know, there's so many things I learned, but just learning how to manage the personalities, identify people's personalities, what
Gotta
makes them
massage the skill guys, and you
oh
can be
yeah,
hard
yeah.
on the tough guys. It's that simple.
Well, you said it. And I'll tell you, you know, Brad Wingfield, legendary enforcer and a Trasher legend. I'll never forget him coming to me, and I was still 17. And we had signed him first, believe it or not. And we signed, you know, we started signing a bunch of other guys. And this is no disrespect to anyone out there. But he came to me once. He goes, AJ, we got to talk. And I thought he was mad about something with his contract or something. We hadn't even played a game yet. And he goes, listen, you're signing too many French guys. He goes, what's going to happen? He goes, what's going to happen here? I'm letting you know now. The locker room's going to be divided. I'm telling you right now. And I was like, no. You know, what are you talking about? And sure enough, man, you start learning the clickiness of a hockey locker room, man. And it's funny because we had one of our captains at the time, Bruce Richardson. He thought we had too many American guys. So it's one of those things where you try to balance it all out. And but it's a lot, man. You know how it is. But definitely
Yeah, and
the skill guys definitely require a little more, you know,
massaging.
massaging for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. And you know what's crazy is I played in the QMJHL. And when I played in St. John for the St. John Sea Dogs, it's an English town, St. John, New Brunswick. There was a lot of French guys, and it's true. Like it is the French guys stick with the French guys and speak in French in the French corner, and the English guys
Yeah.
speaking in English. I think that's how it is, though. If you get 6 Czech guys, right? If you get 6 guys that speak a different language and that's their first language, usually it creates kind of a click.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, clicks, you know, the term click, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you got to watch it though, because, you know, you get it, like I said, man, everybody's opinions are so funny, and you gotta listen, 2024 is a whole nother level, but everyone's got an opinion, and you gotta worry about, you know, every little decision you make affects every facet of every little thing. And you know, when you make decisions, you gotta take into account your captain, or right down to your equipment manager, to a guy that maybe has 1 point. You know what I mean? You have to literally, you know, you're not going to please everyone, but you got to figure out, you know, what the angle to every. It's a lot, man. It's a lot like chess, man. It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. And what about the podcast? Like, how did you and Daniel Amesbury connect? You guys have a great podcast talking trash, and I mean, how did that come about?
Well, let's flash back a little. So when the documentary came out on the Trashers, you know, on Netflix, it was the summer of 2021. Then later in that year, you know, going into 2022, I had a small group of investors reach out to me, said, hey, we've been trying for years to start a hockey fight league, and we think you're the perfect guy to be the face of this, you know, especially after the documentary and this and that. And, you know, I've been dealing with boxing now for so long, you know, and promoting fights, and you know, I kind of understand how it all works. It's a lot
Right in
harder
your
than it looks, but
wheelhouse.
oh, it was like combining all my worlds, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. You know, I was like, let's do it, you know. And I remember it was early 2022. I kind of put out on the Trashers Instagram that, hey, we're starting this thing called Ice Wars. And you know, again, the idea was perfect. You know, I thought it was crazy. I was like, this is awesome. Everyone's gonna love it. But then shortly after, I started thinking, bro, I'm like, it's 2022 at the time. I'm like, God, how many of those guys are still out there? You know what I mean? That want to do this. You know what I mean? I mean, the documentary is so weird because it takes me back to when I was a kid and it was a different time back then. You know what I mean? And it's different now.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, damn. I was like, is this going to be a mistake? And again, I had been out of the game for so long, hockey. I didn't know what was going on, who the players were, anything. So I'm like, damn. Sure enough, I mean, they started coming in, flooding into us. That the guy, old school veteran guys and newer guys just hitting me up, wanting to do this. And one of them happened to be this kid, Daniel Amesbury. And I'm like, I have no idea who Daniel Amesbury is. And he kept like an annoying girlfriend, just kept hitting me up, hitting me up. He's like, I got to do this. I was made for this. I promise you, I'll win this whole thing. You got to let me do it. And I started, I went on his hockey DB. I started researching him. And, he had been retired for over 10 years at that point. He was working on a tugboat up in British Columbia. He got a nice job up there. And I don't know, man. Honestly, I mean, it's easy to say now, but I was like, there was something about him. I knew he was different. I'm like, this kid's a trasher in his heart, man. I was like, I could tell, we would have signed him back in 2004 if he was playing, and there was something about him. So sure enough, I was like, you know what? I remember talking to him, and one of the things with Ice Wars was I didn't want to call people by their real names. I wanted to be like wrestling, like their nicknames, right? So like you're the sheriff, right? So it would have been, we wouldn't have even said Nico. It just would have been sheriff, sheriff, sheriff. So I'm like, yo, what's your nickname? He goes, well, some people call me Painsbury. And I'm like, all right, that's okay, but that's not it. I was like, you got anything else? And he goes, well, I recently, and I forget what his reasoning was. He said Diamond Hands. I said, dude, that's it, man. I said, you got to go with Diamond Hands. That's the perfect name.
Wow.
And sure as shit, man. So 2 years to the day, man. We were up in the River Creek Casino in Edmonton, right outside of Edmonton, and we had the synthetic ice. Actually, the synthetic ice was actually really good. And we had like makeshift boards, kind of like as our ropes. They had MMA style gloves, and I had an 8-man tournament, heavyweight tournament, and 2 years to the day. And Ames, Diamond Hands ended up winning it. And I just knew, I was like, this kid, there's something about this kid. And then we ended up having another show in August back at the River Creek Casino. And then that was it. The whole goal was to do 2 demo shows. And then basically I've been in the background I'm not done with that. I'm kind of repackaging it, rebranding it, and working with some of the commissions to hopefully bring it to the States or different parts of Canada. Find ways to make it safer, but it's definitely, it was wild, man. It was a wild 2 events. And then after the second event, we have a federal hockey league team here, and the hat tricks, like, we need a tough guy. And I'm like, listen, man, this kid Diamond Hands, I was like, you got to do whatever you got to do to get this kid. And he ended up coming to Danbury, and the rest is kind of history, man. He came out of retirement, and yeah, we just kind of hit it off, bro. And we said, hey, I was toying with a podcast for a little while, but it was just a timing thing. And then I'm like, this guy's the perfect character for me to have on a podcast with me. And the rest has been history so far,
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're a hell of a hockey manager too, because I mean, he's in the ECHL now from the Federal Hockey League after taking 10 years off. And what's
Listen, I love
crazy
to,
is when I first
I love to take credit for that, but it was like he got jerked around a lot here in Danbury with the Federal League, and you could tell he's a wild man, and he's like a throwback tough guy. So he was running. I mean, guys were scared to death over here in the Federal League of him. And then it was just kind of, honestly, man, right after he got like suspended indefinitely, which is a whole nother story. We were like, damn, what are you gonna do? I was gonna help him start making some calls, but just kind of the Fort Wayne coach was actually I guess kind of watching the situation and kind of just brought him in. And next thing you know, he's in the coast. It was wild year he had. And but it's great, man. And again, it's been so crazy from the documentary, learning how the sport is now, meeting guys like you, Nico. Obviously, I mean, you're a throwback guy. I mean, you're one of my favorite guys, and It's cool, man. But it's my worst nightmare because now I'm getting the itch, to get back involved. And I don't know, man. I'm trying to harness myself because when I go in, I go all in. So I don't know where I fit in 2024 hockey, but we'll see what happens, man. We'll
Man,
see.
what's crazy is like the great thing about you starting Ice Wars and having that many people come in, and also the reaction that you got to the documentary, it just shows that there is still a good amount of people with that old school mentality that want to
Oh
see
yeah.
that old school hockey.
Well,
that's refreshing to me, just to hear that, you had a lot of
yeah,
people going in. And it's crazy because I was watching those Ice Wars at the time,
yeah.
and I wasn't like throwing shade at Amesbury, but I was like, man, he's fighting a bunch of like old retired
Older,
guys,
yeah,
But
yeah.
then I signed in the LNAH and I played with this guy, Derek Parker.
Oh man.
And he was one of the guys that Amesbury fought.
Yeah.
And at the time when I watched Ice Wars, I had no idea who Derek Parker was. But now I was in the LNAH and I was watching this guy eat 5 raw hot dogs and then
Dude.
hitting a couple pads, hopping on the ice and fighting like Thomas Bordelot or
Dude.
Brashear or whoever the heavyweight was on the other team, and just going toe to toe and throwing haymakers. And yeah, granted, he's out of shape now. He's 43 years old, but that even makes him heavier, makes his punches
Dude.
heavier.
Bro, listen to me. Like you got a teammate. When you have a teammate where you just watching him and he looks like he's not doing anything, and at the end of the game you see he has 3 points somehow. Like, how did he do that? You know, that Parks, especially at his age, is just one of those guys that he goes out there, he's skating around, he looks like he's not interested. But dude, Ames told me that was the toughest fight in the 2 Ice Wars events he had. And I mean, he just does not go down. I
No,
mean,
and he wants to keep going.
Oh man, but yeah, man, and that's the thing, you said it, like, people still want that. Yes, they do. But the one thing about the documentary, and I mean, it's hard to avoid, but I mean, yes, we're kind of known now for the fighting and the suspensions and the craziness, but we were actually a really good team. And the thing is, for me, it's not just the fighting, it's just the physicality. It's, getting your nose dirty in the crease, getting dirty goals, throwing the body. I mean, I used to get more excited for like a nice open ice hit than a fight sometimes, So I always tell people it's really not just the fighting. It's all and you guys know, it's all the little things, just the grinders, man. You know what I mean? Just grind it out. And that's always what drew me to the game as a kid in the early 90s when I first started like kind of watching.
Yeah, definitely. I got one more about like the podcast before Z takes us into your childhood. But what's been your biggest challenge with the podcast? Because I know like it's not as easy as everyone thinks. Everyone's like,
No.
everyone's got a podcast type of thing, and we run into challenges all the time. So like I want to know, like, what kind of things do you struggle with, I guess, or
Well,
what kind of challenges?
you hit it on the head. I mean, I think you just hit it on the head in that everyone has a podcast, basically. So one, trying to find ways to stand out. But I'll tell you the truth, I didn't think it was gonna be easy, but at the same time, I'm like, look, I go on the camera, I talk, it kind of comes natural to me. I'm better when like I have guys like you kind of setting me up for questions and stuff. But then when I remember like our first show where I'm like a quasi host now, it's
Yeah,
totally different.
totally.
You have to be prepared. You have to like, I just did it. You got to stop saying all the time. Like I say a lot. I say man a lot. So I'm like trying to catch myself like with words. Um, I try to be authentic, but at the same time try to polish up a little on our own show. But it's hard. It's hard because I'm not a broadcast, I'm not like a seasoned broadcaster, So I just try to keep it as natural as possible. But you're right, being a host, it's it's so much different than, you know, jumping on with you guys, and you guys did all the hard work, research, and setting up kind of like the flow of where things got to go. And it's hard, man. And it's funny because the documentary was a gift and a curse, because it was a gift because, you know, it brought me a lot of opportunity. And I told I told the producer of the doc, I said, listen, before it came out, I said, I don't know if people are going to watch this or going to like it, but if they do, I'm going to figure a way. Like, I don't want to be a guy who's like, hey, you know, I have a documentary out. I want to take that momentum and do different stuff with it, and then try to give back and do better things than just say, hey, you know, I have a documentary, check it out. You know, that gets old after a while, but you know, it's just, it's the pot is tough, man. It's a, but people get a little shook too for some reason. I mean, there are some stuff with our documentary allegedly a little crazy, and it's funny when I think people like that stuff, but then when you're like, hey, you want to jump on my podcast now? They get a little, they get a lot of guys get a little nervous and jerky, you
Oh,
know, oh, my agent thinks, you know, I should not have any distract. I know it's not your agent, you know, you just like, it's funny, man, but I dealt with a lot of that stuff my whole life, so it doesn't bother me. But it's funny, a lot of these guys, you know, they how do I explain it, man? They want to be down with certain things, and then as soon as you're like, hey, you know, let me fly you up to Danbury, why don't you come over? They get all like, you know, all of a
yeah.
sudden it gets a little weird. So
No,
I don't know, man. It is
100%, dude. 100%. That's definitely, you hit it on the head with the likes and all that. Like, I say like a lot sometimes, and you know, you're watching them after, and it's so painful because you're just like, shut up, dude. Like, how don't you realize what you're doing? And me and
I,
Z, me and Z were just talking. Sometimes I'll do pods with my hands down like this, and I look like a little boy, you know. Whereas, like, when I'm up here, you know, I look like a man. So
well,
it's
you know, it's and the same thing, like in our little studio, we actually got a TV in there, which was a stupid idea because you could see yourself now, and like I'm constantly looking. So I told him to take it out. I was like, you know what? It is what it is. You know what? People know I'm not like some. I didn't go to school for like broadcasting, you know. So I think people, even with you guys, I think people always tend to like people who are authentic. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And you just have fun with it, man, because I think it's great what you guys are doing as active players. I think I think a lot of active players, more so in hockey, are so scared to put themselves out there because they think it's gonna come off like I don't want to come off like I'm being cocky or I'm trying to look out for myself. Nah, man, you got to use these platforms because if people are smart, they use these platforms because it pays off, man. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, thank God there wasn't podcasts in 2004. We'd be in big trouble. But
yeah.
nah, I think what you guys doing are great, and I think it's necessary. But yeah, hockey guys, you know, are humble guys for the most part. They don't want to look like. But I think it's great you guys are doing it, and it's super unique because people want to get the inside track of what goes on.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think at the end of the day, maybe some people think it comes off as cocky, like who do you think you are to host your own podcast? But I think if you're just yourself and people tune in and they don't like it, then they don't like you. Then, you know, fuck it at the end of the day. But if you're just being yourself, you're putting it out there, and like, you know, then there should be nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? And
Nah, you just hit it on the head, and you know I'm gonna be 38 in the summer, bro. And it's like I learned a long time ago, man. Yeah, I love steak, right, Nico? I can show somebody the most beautiful piece of steak, fly it in from Japan, cook it perfectly, and then turn around and tell me I'm a vegan. So you can't please everybody, bro. Like you're never going to. It's impossible. It literally, if you think about what it takes to like create a relationship with someone, even as a friend, you don't have enough time in your lifetime if your job was to meet every person in the world, get them to like you. You know what I mean? So you're right. If people don't like you or they don't like what you're doing, there's nothing you can do to change their mind. You know what I mean? So
right.
but I
Right.
think
I'm
it's
not going to
great.
close doors. You know, we're not going to close doors on ourselves just because we're afraid of what people are going to think. You know, I think
No,
long
no,
run,
no,
this will be something that, you know, could
no.
benefit not only us, but we want this to benefit young kids coming up to be able to hear first
Yes.
from pros.
And I think with you two especially, I mean, just your experience, where you guys are going. I think, I mean, this is a longevity thing. And again, people know the difference. You know, people could tell. I mean, what was this episode 100 something you guys have done?
108.
Yeah, I know guys that try it. They think they're gonna get rich in 5 episodes and they quit. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like same thing. Like, I don't think. I mean, look, we all wish, but I don't think I'm gonna make a living off podcasts. But it plays into stuff I'm doing and want to do, and you gotta take advantage of the tools, man. Because if you don't, you're just behind. So I think it's great. You guys are one of these podcasts that, honestly, man, you talk about active players. I don't know how many guys have over 100 pods, you know, actively playing at high level. So I think that's something you guys got to market, and people like that stuff, man. I mean, and whoever doesn't, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that for sure. I mean, this is something like we're hockey players and we're the kind of guys that are all in on hockey. So we're full hockey guys. So we figured we're full hockey guys.
Yeah.
We're both dads, right? So what's something that could maybe start just something, a project we can start to work on to maybe one day can be something and can help other people in the hockey community. That's, you know, pretty much it.
Yeah. I agree. And you guys are doing a good job, and I would just keep doing it because it'll all pay off in the end for sure.
Yeah. For, what I love about our podcast, first of all, I've been loving just listening to you guys, man. It's been great. I love that our podcast, we talk about guys in their careers. We inform kids who are listening through players' experiences. And the beauty of the podcast is that it's not going anywhere. You post on
No.
the platform, and there's a kid that could be born today, and he grows up to love hockey. And when he's 8 years old, he goes on to Spotify, and he's like, oh, look, I found the Buzz Pod. And you can
Yep.
look at 100 players and listen to their career paths and where they've gone and what experiences they've done. And
It's timeless. It's timeless. And,
yeah,
and that's what's great about what you guys do, and that's what we're trying to build as well, is like you said, it's like the whole content thing. It's like it's endless, but when you do stuff like this and you have like a library, it's timeless. You know what I mean? And that's why, like you said, I mean, there's like you just said the perfect analogy. There's a kid born today that, God, Lord knows what will be going on in 10 years, but in like 10, 11 years, he'll be swiping his like arm where they inject the phones now, and it'll be coming up on his forearm, you know, watching you
yeah,
guys, you know?
yeah, man. So I want to talk about your playing career and when you were a kid growing up and playing. So I know you fell in love with the Mighty Ducks. We all love the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So talk to me about growing up, you know, youth hockey into high school.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, I'm still in Danbury. I've been in Danbury my whole life, basically. And when I was a kid, there was no ice arena here, right? So hockey wasn't like, this wasn't a hockey hotbed. Connecticut had the Hartford Whalers, but we didn't care because Danbury's got this attitude. We got an identity crisis in Danbury because it's like we're so close to New York that Connecticut doesn't even claim us half the time. You know what I mean? And like New York doesn't claim us because we're in Connecticut. So Danbury's always had like this chip on their shoulder. And yeah, we weren't a hockey hotbed. And I just remember it was a rainy weekend, early 90s, whenever the first Ducks movie came out. And my mom's like, let's just go to the movies. There's nothing to do. We go to the movies. I'll never forget, on North Street. And she goes, Mighty Ducks, let's go see Mighty Ducks. It was rated G or PG or whatever. We had no idea what it was about. We walked in, and I swear to you, you know when things just click. I just remember it started playing. You know, Emilio Estevez is, you know, Gordon Bombay's rolling up in the limo on the pond, and I just was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that was literally my first introduction to hockey. I didn't like watch an NHL game before. You know, the Ducks come on, and I swear, like, I don't even remember the first time watching it, like in the theater. I don't even think I really was paying too much attention because I was devising a plan in my head. How do I get into hockey now? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like as soon as as soon as the ending credits come up, the lights go on, I said to my mom, I want to play hockey. And she was just like, where the hell do we play hockey? We didn't have a rink. So by the Danbury Mall over here, it's a large mall. There was actually a sporting goods store, and we go there, and I look for the hockey aisle, and there actually was. I mean, it was the hockey aisle was trash, but it was something. And I just remember like the guy coming up to me and just being like, "Are you right-handed or left-handed?" So I write with my right hand. So I said, "Oh, I'm a righty." So he gives me a right-handed stick. And I remember we bought like these NHL license, these rubber orange pucks, like street hockey pucks. And we
Soft in the
got like,
middle. Like
yeah,
soft in the
oh
middle, like
yeah,
a little hard on
oh
the outside.
they were beautiful, man. It made me think I was gonna be a sniper. We get a goal. I go to my, we go to my house. We set it up. Now I'm holding the stick like a lefty, but I told the guy I'm a righty, and I'm like, so my backhand is like my forehand. I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing here. Something's wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm just slap shotting backhands like I suck. I'm like this. I'm like something's wrong. And my mom doesn't know. My dad was like, what the hell's going on? Like he doesn't know anything. And I go back and I'm like, finally someone had the wherewithal to say, wait, hold the stick. And I held it and they're like, no, you're shooting like a lefty. So I got a lefty stick and dude, for a while, then I just graduated to rollerblades. I started rollerblading around the house, the driveway and shooting. And it's all I would do after school. And eventually someone said, hey, right over the New York border in Brewster, there's a rink. And my mom took me. And again, never skated before. And I went out for like a free skate, in those, BS skates they give you for free skate. And I'm skating around. I'm trying to figure, it's not looking pretty, but I'm getting around. And yeah, it just graduated to me doing some lessons there. And I started playing for like a little in-house team there. And, at the time, God, this was the mid 90s, 90, maybe 97. I was actually, for my age, I was pretty big. And, guys were bouncing off me. I mean, there was no checking, but I thought I was going to be nasty because I was big at the time. And I was like a prime Eric Lindros in that league. You know what I mean? I was just like, I was averaging like 4 goals a game. I'm just killing it. Not knowing, like, we're in this little part of Brewster, New York, like, hey, dude, like I'm thinking I'm making plans to go to Michigan. I'm gonna go to Michigan because I like their helmets. I'm making plans in 7th grade. I'm gonna go to the NHL. Maybe I'll spend 10 years in the show, and then, dude, I had no idea.
We've all made those plans.
I had no clue. And then, sure enough, my dad takes me. My dad knew nothing about hockey. He gets tickets to New Jersey, a New Jersey Devils game. It was what, 93, 94 even. This was actually before I actually played youth hockey. And I just remember going, and it was the Devils against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think Yager was out there. And Scott Stevens, who was my favorite player, just laid someone out.
Those guys.
And I was just in love. I was like, I need to be Scott. I need to be Scott Stevens. I just loved it, man. And yeah, and then it caught up to me when I got to high school. Everything, guys started even out in size, and I wasn't Eric Lindros out there. I was a 4th line, getting 20 seconds a game. And then I said to myself, well, you know what? This sucks. So, in high school, no one wants to be a forward. I mean, no one wants to be a defenseman, right? Everyone's trying to score. Everyone wants to be a forward. So I'm like, you know what, coach? I'll go to defense. Screw it, That's the only way I'm going to get on the ice. So no one wanted to play defense on my team. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to concentrate on being Scott Stevens. I'm just going to lay people out if I can. Just keep the puck out of the net. And I'm not worried about scoring. I'm not worried about anything. I just want to hit someone and just keep the puck out of the net. I really cared about my plus minus. That's how bad I was. Well, all I cared about was my plus minus. Like everyone's looking at the points. I'm like, what's my plus minus? As long as I'm a 0 or a plus something, I had a good game,
Yeah.
But that's the only way I figured I'd get on the ice because I was a young kid. I was a little wild, and that's all I cared about it. Looking back, if I could go back in time and be like, man, concentrate on playing the game a little more, I probably could have done something. But it just wasn't meant to be.
That's
That's where
crazy
Nico's
because
at right now.
that's where I'm at right now, man. That's actually crazy that you said that. I got chills, man. Me and Zach were just talking about that in the intro before you hopped on. Is like sometimes I just, especially in my first 3 years pro, but this season as well, there was many instances where, I truly feel and believe that I'm a much, much better player than people know. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to show that I'm a much better player, but it's like this thing in me that when someone disrespects me or disrespects a teammate or
You can't let it go.
challenges me in any way, I'm just like in my head, like you're that stupid that you think you can beat me up. Like I have to show you right now that
Yeah.
that's not how it is, And it's like it's an ego thing where I have to shut that down
Yeah.
and allow myself to just play hockey and sometimes take a chirp and not do anything about it, because it's just
Well,
so in me to just do something about
it's just like when I talk to Amesbury, he unfortunately just has a rep right now where the minute he's on the ice, and I'm sure you go through it too, it's
it. Oh
like
yeah,
the refs, oh, Amesbury's on that. You know what I mean? He
100%.
and it's tough for him. I mean, we talk daily, and he says the same thing. He's like, AJ, I'm going to be 34 years old. I don't have a lot of miles on me. I was off for so long. I know I could do more than fight. And you just hit it on the head. And how old are you, Nico, now? I'm sorry. How old are you?
26.
Oh, man, you're a baby, man. You guys are young guys. So, what I learned, man, is us as men, we all have egos, right? It's just a matter of how big they are. And when I learned in life that the only person I realized I was trying to impress was myself, not anyone else. When I realized, you know what, AJ, I don't mean to talk in the third person, but when I said to myself, like, AJ, you know who you are, you know what you're about. Why are you trying to, like, I thought I was trying to please and impress everybody, but in reality, I was trying to prove it to myself. And then I just got to a point where I'm like, I don't need to act that way anymore. I don't have to be that way anymore. And like you said, you pick your spots. But I think, like you said, I mean, Ames and you are very similar. You guys got reps. You guys are tough. Everyone knows when they hear your guys' names, they're like, oh shit. Like these, I don't, yeah, man. I just think you gotta make a conscious effort to say, you know what? I'm Nico. I'm the sheriff. Everyone knows it. And it's almost like you let them know when you give them the benefit to scrap. Like I'll let you know when you could eat. I make the decision. I'm the shot caller. Okay. I'll let you know when I'll give you. But when you look at it that way, it's different than I get what you mean, because Ames is the same way. I'd be talking to Ames on a Friday when he's on the road, and AJ, I'm gonna play it clean today. I'm gonna really try to score. I'm gonna play it clean. All right, Ames. Sure enough, I'll be out and I look at the box score. It's like 2-5-10 game miscount. I'm like, what happened? You know what I mean?
Oh
It's
my
like
God, that is
he's like, I can't
crazy.
help.
That's
He's like, I can't. He's like, I can't help it. He goes, I just can't help it. He goes, I cannot. And I just think fighters are different. And you don't even have to be a fighter, man. It's just some guys just have that killer instinct where it's like you look at the jungle, man. I mean, a lion's not going to let you get away with it. So I think we got these animalistic instincts, man. And it's like, look, I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm very territorial with certain things in my life. And in the old days, if I felt like someone was treading on that, I would do anything allegedly to stop that from ever happening. But then, like you said, man, I'm like, you know what? I'm playing right into what they want, man. You know what I
yeah.
mean? I'm not going to, it's but it's hard, man. It's hard, but I know you could do it, bro. You just gotta.
You hit it right on the head, because now that I think about it, like when I've already fought a guy and beat him, when I play him, I play calm. I don't feel the need to prove anything, I guess, to myself. But it's like when you get a guy that you've never fought, like it's almost like a challenge. Like
Yeah,
I've never done this before. Kind
yeah,
of can I do it in the back of my head, type of thing.
It's you're trying, and you know what it is too. And I don't mean to keep going on a tangent about this, but I just learned this about fighters, especially boxers and stuff. Dude, it's one of those things, man, where it's like I said, you don't have to please everyone, man. And I feel like you know what I think it is, and I don't want to speak for you because
Yeah.
I consider you a friend already, but I don't know your whole life story. I'm not going to act like that, but a lot of things with fighters, okay? The reason a lot of these boxers just never retire, man, you know why? Because it's almost like if I stop, I just lost my identity. You know what I mean? Like I'm the sheriff. Like I'm Diamond Hands. Like I got to where I'm at in a way because of this. When in reality, you guys can skate and play. But in your guys' mind, because the fans love you, you guys are always the fan favorites. It's like, damn, I don't want to let the fans down, and you may not even think it, but in your head, you're like, if I don't fight this guy, he's got one on me, and I just lost my identity. Like, who am I now? Like, all of a sudden, it's gonna be like a therapy session. You know what I mean? Like, who
Yeah,
am
yeah.
I? Who?
Maybe the
But
fans are
it's
thinking, oh, I'm turning one down. Like, I don't want people to
yeah.
think I'm turning one down, and yeah, that's
It's
true,
like
man.
dude. I get it, man. I've seen it from a kid watching guys, in the Trashers to, in other teams, obviously, but even now dealing with boxers. I remember having to sit a boxer down last year in my office and telling him, I think it's the end, man. I think, it's tough. It's tough to look a fighter in the eye and tell him, I think we're done here, because a fighter's never going to stop. You know what I mean? Like in his head, nah. But it's tough, man. And you talk about what I learned from Trasher days. Like I remember once we were going to waive a guy, and I was 18 at that point. And my dad looked at me and he's like, okay, waive him. I said, me? I was like, it's like, yeah, go. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to be the one to tell him. You know what I mean? And I'm a kid. I'm gonna go tell this grown man with a family, like, hey, we're getting, But my dad's like, hey, you want to be the GM? You want to go around and have the label? You got to walk the walk, man. And I remember sitting down and stuttering like Bobby Boucher from The Water Boy. I was stuttering, bro, like. And I remember he smiled at me. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want it to embarrass him or anything. But I remember him finally smiling at me and say, "AJ, it's okay, man. I knew this was coming. It's like you had the balls to do it. You know what I mean?" But he let me go on for like 5 minutes, just yeah. So and
Yeah,
he
like
just sat
you cut
there,
the guy, and he's like, "Hey, good job, buddy."
and he just I just remember him smiling at me. He's like, AJ, it's okay. It's part of the business. And I just felt so bad, but at the same time, I felt like I earned a little bit of respect because I didn't want to be the one to do it. I'm like, Dad, can't we have, so and so do it? He's like, no, you sold me on the idea, you do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I was like, well, it is what it is. So I mean, again, it's never easy, but I get it, man. That fighter mentality, and again, it's not just fighters. It's guys like Z over here, man. Big point guy. I'm watching him. I'm seeing what he's doing. It's tough sometimes. But hey, you know what? I know you could harness it, bro. I really do. And you know what? You're gonna put up some points. Maybe you and Ames will be top 15 point guys this year in the coast. You never know.
Man,
You
I
don't know.
I love that. I love that. But Z, don't let him fool you. He's not just like a skill guy. He's an
Oh,
absolute
I know.
fact.
Oh, I
He
know.
jumps
I
guy.
know.
Hey, this guy, he jumped like a 6'7" guy from behind.
There you go.
This guy's a dog.
No, I know.
He-
Believe me,
he's
I did I did my research, and no, absolutely, man. It's just but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, Nico, where a lot of fighters, that identity crisis, and it's like you said, like, are the fans gonna be pissed? And but you know what, bro? The fans are gonna forget tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be like, oh, Nico, he wouldn't fight so and so. He must be a punk or something. You know what, dude? Okay, yeah, I'm a punk, sure.
Well,
But at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, I always say this everywhere I go. I always say this. When the fans ask me, because fans know, like, they look up guys' careers and they know exactly who you are and how many teams you've played for. And everywhere I go, fans are like, hey, are you gonna stay here? Are you gonna stick? Are you gonna stay here? And I always say, I wish it were up to you guys. I wish it were up to the fans, because if it were up to the fans, I would have never played. I would have only played for one team my whole career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's something where you can never do things to please the fans, although fighting is a type of showmanship that, it puts asses in seats, and it gets people going. So
No, you can't tell me anything different. I mean, I get it. Listen, trust me when I say, I mean, people get the wrong impression of me. I am pro tough guy. I'm pro fighting. I'm pro the toughness, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm also like, I get it. Like, I get, man. Like, I talk to a lot of guys, boxers, MMA guys, hockey guys that did it for a long time and now having a tough time in their life after the fact. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like Nico should be fighting 2 times a game for, you know what I mean? I get it. There's a balance there, but you can't tell me that, business 101 is what makes your business different. The fact that hockey, you can fight. I mean, could you imagine with the skill level of hockey today, if hockey embraced that toughness again, like the 90s, the early 2000s, and combined it with all the skill you see today, there's not a sport in the world that can compete with it. There's not a chance in hell.
I mean, I was at that game the other day when Pasternak and Kachuk dropped the glove center ice. Like, are you kidding me? Are
Dude,
you kidding me? That's awesome.
dude, I'm telling you, man, it's but hey, the pendulum is swinging. You know what I mean? Like you said, I mean, a lot of fighting is going up and stuff. But again, it's like, I didn't like the fighting because I was hoping someone got hurt. That was, like a real tough guy never wants to see someone actually get hurt. But it's just like everything.
But you don't want to get hurt either. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's me or you, brother. And it
Oh
ain't gonna
yeah,
be
no,
me.
no. Hey, listen, if I'm saying from my point of view, when I was signing tough guys and stuff, like I wasn't really hoping anyone got hurt on the other team, but I wanted to like instill that dominance. Like you're never going to beat us. Um,
Physically.
and I know I'm rambling on, but I think the one thing I'll say about the legacy of the Trashers, the only thing that ever bothered me was that someone once came out with an article years ago and said, the skilled players on the Trashers must feel so embarrassed to be part of this team. And dude, it couldn't have been the opposite.
Yeah.
The skilled players were so happy here because no one would even try to poke check them. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like literally, guys were having career years. They were going on the next year or two to play in the Coast or the American League, and dude, the skilled players loved playing in Danbury because that security blanket. I mean, it was insane, man.
I mean, I think the people who appreciate it the most are those first line guys. Like from
Oh
my
yeah.
experience, I think those are the guys that just feel the difference so much more. Or I think when you don't have a guy, every guy on the other team is a tough guy to you because you're a first line kind of
Yeah.
you got to be massaged. And so
Yeah.
you have a guy like myself or a tougher guy on the bench, then it kind of makes the other team less tough, and they don't feel as comfortable.
No, they don't play as big. They
Yeah, they
play
don't
small.
play as big.
It's kind of how
Exactly.
we described it.
But you
Um,
just brought up the Trashers, but Z, you got some?
yeah, I got something real quick. Nico, what game did you what game in the season was it when you joined Adirondack? Like about
Uh,
20 in or
about 20 in, yeah.
okay, about 20 in. My old affiliate team, Newfoundland Growlers, play in Adirondack, and they're playing against Nico. And I'm like, good luck. Like, he's gonna play hard. Like, you know who he is, whatever.
Yeah.
They call me after the game. They're like, dude, you would not believe this. The fans before the game are wearing shirts of Nico's face. They're chanting, Nico, Nico. He's like, he's been here for a month. He's a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep, checks out.
Dude, listen, again, I feel like I feel like I need one more full season overall in hockey to catch up because after we lost the team in 06, I stopped watching altogether. And then when Netflix came out in 2021, I started paying attention again. But I learned about Nico pretty early on. And Adirondack was our biggest rivals. They were the Adirondack Frostbite at the time in 04 and 05. And man, we used to push Adirondack around. Like the first year, I felt so bad. There was one guy who had to answer to like 12 guys on our team. And the second year, they got a lot tougher. We forced them to get tough. But Adirondack, they love, they're just lumberjacks up there. They love. And let me tell you something. I'm watching Nico, and we've talked Nico, Darian Skio. My God, I don't think last year there was a better 1-2 punch overall. That was like, I thought I was transported back in time and watching like early 2000s hockey, man. I'm like, that kid Skio is a scary man. And then you got Nico, who's scary, and he's the guy that the crowd is just gonna automatically grab it. Especially and I remember when Nico, you got picked up, was it Iowa, right? You got picked up by?
Yeah.
I got friendly with this kid, through Instagram, and he's in Iowa, and you probably know him, but he is a diehard Iowa guy. And he's like, the whole season he's complaining, our team sucks. We're so soft. God, when Amesbury, when Diamond Hand side with Fort Wayne, he's like, oh, you should have had him come to Iowa. I'm like, dude, I got no choice. And then when they signed you, this kid, you would have thought it was Christmas morning. He messaged me. I never met this kid in person, by the way. We just talk. I talk to everybody. I don't care. He's like, we got Nico. We got Nico. Oh, he was so excited. But that's, it's people just, they gravitate to guys like you guys.
Yeah, no, definitely. A shout out to Section N, by the way, in Adirondack. They embraced me from day
Oh,
one.
I remember that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So those guys are.
Those motherfuckers hawked a loogie right on my visor, right in between the eyes.
Man, that section is nuts. It's similar to the section. Was it 102?
Oh yeah. Oh my
It's
God.
similar. Like no body bags, but man, they are ruthless. Like when I'm I remember just being at the red line in warmups, and whoever their tough guy was, or the toughest guy on their team, they'd just be like, yeah, you're not gonna go, Nico, you're scared. And they're saying things that like I can't even repeat here, but man, those guys were unbelievable. They had shirts right away. They had that shirt. I don't know if you know that meme where like there's a face of someone and then the glasses come on with a cigar, and they had those shirts on of me. It was unbelievable. But you mentioned the Trashers, and we haven't even gotten into the documentary and everything, but I'd love to take you back. Okay, so it's April 1st, 2004. The UHL announces that there's a new team in Danbury, Connecticut, and the Danbury Trashers GM and president is going to be 17-year-old AJ Galante. So, like, how you feeling? 17 years old.
Like if you read back it, and you're right, man. If you look at the press releases, it's just like as I get older, man, I tell you, it becomes more unbelievable to me. Like, cause like the story of the Trashers before Netflix, it was just kind of local folklore. You know what I mean? It was like, even people around here didn't really believe it. You know what I mean? And it was like, as I get older, man, it's like, it just felt so normal to me at the time. Like, yeah, I guess people do this. You know what I mean? But as I get older, man, I'm like, I don't know how we got away with some of the stuff we got away, but we purposely put it out on April 1st, April Fool's Day, that we were doing this. And we were just toying with people. People thought it was fake. It was April Fool's. But it was it seemed so legit and official that people just weren't sure, And we had a press conference in the lobby of the Danbury Arena. And dude, I was a kid. I look back now, I was stuttering, and it was just like people just didn't. I was up there talking, but people just weren't. They were just waiting for like April Fools. You know what I mean? They were just waiting, and the April Fools never came. And it was just, man, I look back now and it's just like, it's just, I don't know what to say, man. I get asked it a lot. I wish I could come up with like a cool answer, something eloquent. It's just, it was nuts. I can't believe we went through with it. And I just, it's insane, man. I don't even know what to say. It was just a crazy time.
Is it just crazy to look back and see yourself in that documentary? I mean, I look back at pictures of myself when I was 17. Sometimes I'm like, man, I was such a little fool. Do you say some things in that documentary, like at that age where you're like, man, I was such a punk?
Yeah, dude. So here's the thing, right? So I tell people this. I've always been a huge wrestling fan. I still am a huge wrestling fan. Like, I'm a professional wrestling nerd. Like, I love wrestling, right? So the one thing about me I will say is I've always been a humble person. I always will be. I couldn't not be humble. My dad and my mom would kill me, but I've always been humble. But I knew that when it was gonna come out that I was the GM, the president, whatever, it really didn't matter if I was like the nicest guy in the world. People were gonna hate me just because of that, right?
Because you're a young
I
kid.
understood. I understood, like, I'm going into the jungle here. Like, there's no way I'm gonna come out unscathed. Like, people are just not, even if they never met me, they're just not gonna like me. And I understand. I
But
mean,
I loved you from the doc. You talking about from the documentary? I loved you from the documentary
no,
because
no, no, no. Yeah,
yeah,
so no, but I mean like going back to '04, like I kind of knew, like, when this became public, especially locally, even people I knew my whole life, I was gonna become like, people were just not gonna like it. So I said to myself, like, in wrestling fashion, if people are not gonna like me, I might as well amplify my personality to make sure you really don't like me. You know what I mean? Like, I want to earn it at least, right? Like, if I'm
that's
gonna
gonna
get
be
hit in
your
the
thing. You're
face,
the bad guy.
yeah. So if I'm gonna get hit in the face with a puck, I got, like, that's gonna suck, right? I want to at least lose a tooth, right? Like, I have to, like, if it's gonna hurt, I want to go all out. So I knew, like, they're not gonna like me, so we might as well create this bad guy wrestler, like a heel wrestler. Like, we are gonna make the first ever heel hockey team, like, that people just automatically hate. And again, I said I'm gonna amplify my personality a little bit and have a little fun with it. You know, why not? And yeah, man. I mean, when you hear a 17-year-old at a press conference before we even played a game talking about, yeah, we're gonna go undefeated, we're gonna set the record for penalty minutes, we're gonna beat everyone up, that's gonna piss people off. You know what I mean? I mean, they would piss me off. So I'm like, all right, so check, checklist number one is done. They hate me. They hate the Trashers now, because of a large part because of me, because I became like a focal point of the team. So now I got to get players to buy into this image. You know what I mean? And thankfully we found the right mix of guys, man. But to answer your original question, yeah, I look back and I just you gotta laugh because even the way I dress, I was always myself. Like, back in the day, it wasn't just me. We all dressed like that.
No,
So
no,
it
it
was
was
kind of like
fresh. It was fresh, man. I grew up in Miami, like
yeah,
after you, so the baggy stuff was done, but like I can see it
yeah.
was fresh, you know.
Yeah, so it was like people were just like they just couldn't understand what we were doing. And honestly, guys, we didn't know what we were doing. We just winged it. Like, I tell people, like,
No,
I
you knew
think
what you were
people,
doing. You knew what you were doing. The white tee under the jersey. You knew what you were doing.
yes,
It was
yeah,
in.
yeah. So no, we had fun, man. We just and it was a different time, man. You guys grew up in a different time with me, even if I'm a little older. Like, this was before the time of, like, trying to go viral. Everyone's trying to go viral now. They're doing dumb shit. We weren't trying to be like, we didn't say to ourselves, let's be crazy because in 20 years there's gonna be a documentary about it. We didn't care about that stuff. We just were like, we were trying to make ourselves laugh, our inner circle. We're like, let's have fun with this. We weren't trying to, like, it was just a different time, man. It's just like I miss those days, but at the same time, I'm just happy we came out of that stuff somewhat unscathed. It was just nuts, man.
Yeah, no, and that opening night, right? Like you pick out a fresh suit. I saw that picture of you and your dad dropping the puck. You got a fresh suit on. Uh, you know, after that game's over, I mean, what was that feeling like? I mean, now it's a real it's a real thing. You know, when something's developing, you're excited about it, but then it happens and you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
Well, you're 100% right. It's kind of like adrenaline, right? It's like fighting. It's like the anticipation of a fight, then the fight, then the post, the aftermath when the adrenaline dies down, and now you're starting to feel it a little bit. It was no different. It was like after the initial shock of, yeah, we're bringing a team here. Now we got to figure it out. Then it was like the ebbs and flows, the roller coaster of emotion. This is going to work. No, this isn't going to work. Yes, it's going to work. And then after the first game, you just hit it on the head. After the first game, we thankfully won. It was like, oh shit, we got 80 more games to play. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, like it wasn't like just one event. It wasn't like a boxing match, right? So now it's like, damn, we got to keep doing this. So it was a lot, man. It really was a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially at 17 years old, just to take on the responsibility of a president and GM. One question that I'm really curious about is, how did the guys treat you? Did they treat you like a GM? Did they treat you like a teammate? You know, like what was the relationships like?
Or little
Well,
brother.
again, yeah, I mean, again, I'll be honest, like I knew, like, listen, I'm sure at first everyone's going to be respectful to me. I'm the boss's son. I'm technically the GM. I knew people by default would at least be nice to me at first, but I knew I was going to have to earn their respect. I mean, you can't just walk into like me at a teenager. Like I knew I'm not going to just walk in the room, start throwing things and be like, hey, fuck you guys. You guys suck. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to be that kind of guy. So what I said was it was very simple, man. I was like, you know what? I got to find this balance where I want to fit in with them. How do I explain this? I didn't want them to look at me as one of the boys because at the end of the day, I still was management, right? So you can't get too connected because it's going to cloud your judgment. And at the same time, I had to find a balance of, hey, whether we like it or not, or understand it or not, technically he's management, he's a boss. But at the same time, it's AJ, it's our buddy, I remember buying at the time, what was it, like a PlayStation 3? I remember we had so many video game tournaments in the locker room and just fitting in with them. And, man, my dad would tell guys, you listen, don't treat AJ a certain way because you think, it's going to please me. If you're not happy with him, tell me, you know what I mean? And that's the other thing, man. My dad 1,000,000% would have fired me. Like there was a time in the second year, we were coming close to the trade deadline. And I swear to God, I'm not just saying this to sound funny. I really thought my dad was going to fire me. Like we were going on a drought. We were sucking. We were bad. Like we had such a good team, but we sucked and something was just off. And I just knew if we didn't pull a rabbit out of our hat by the trade deadline, I swear to God, I don't think my dad would have publicly embarrassed me and like been like, hey, I'm firing my son. But I promise you, he would have relieved me of my duties. I think they say it nicely. I promise you, my dad would have got rid of me. So there was a time in that second season where I was feeling some serious heat, man. It was crazy. And the guys saw that and they realized, hey, Jimmy's really for real. Like he's treating AJ like anybody else, not really his son. You know what I mean? So my dad actually helped me without trying because, my dad and I got a unique relationship, but he treated me just like anyone else. And there was no favoritism, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. How would you recruit Nico Blatchman to the Danbury Trashers?
Oh, dude, that's easy. I would say to him, all right. So first, before I tell you how I would recruit Nico, so how it worked with our organization was, in baseball terms, I was like the starting pitcher. So my job was to come up with ideas, and it wasn't. By the way, it wasn't just me. We had a team around me. It wasn't. I don't want to seem like I'm taking all the credit. We would talk, and we had guys we trusted, agent wise or scouts, and I would come to my dad as a starting pitcher and say, "Hey, we need Nico." And he'd say, why? And I'd explain why. I'd say, first of all, he's going to be a poster child trasher. The crowd is going to love him. We're going to sell out of his player tees and jerseys. And not to mention, he's one of the toughest guys in the league. He's a locker room guy, blah, 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 blah. My dad's the closer. At that point, my dad would call Nico or his agent or however it works these days and say, hey, you want to come to Danbury? He'd probably get him here. And listen, I never dealt with money stuff. So allegedly, however my dad closed it, he closed it with the money and all that other stuff. I know there's rumors of duffel bags of cash. I never dealt with the duffel bags of cash or anything like that. But how I would recruit Nico is very simple. He'd walk into the Danbury Arena. We probably have section 102 there, or like the ambassadors, the main guys and girls, the characters. We'd probably have unlicensed Nico Blacksman shirts already that they'd be wearing. And he'd walk into the rink and I'd have all his highlights on the big screen and the whole 9 yards, man. And I'd be like, listen, this is it, man. This is home. And there'd be a lot of different ways. Listen, nowadays it's a lot different. There's so many different ways you recruit guys and girls in athletics. So we'd have to get a little creative, but he'd feel at home real quick. Same with you, man.
That sounded great. Give me a pen and paper. Oh, it sounded great.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this guy's gonna sign before the podcast ends.
Yeah,
dude,
man.
you gotta know. You gotta know what makes. You gotta know. And me being in boxing now, I do similar recruiting for certain things and putting fights together. And you gotta really. I never wanted to fleece a guy. You know what I mean? Like even when I've made a few trades, no one really wanted to deal with us because of our attitude. But the few trades I made, I really wanted it. You always hear fans talk about trades. Who got the best of who? Who got the better of the deal? When I dealt with other GMs or teams, I always wanted to be fair. You know what I mean? And, I'd never want to fleece a guy or sell him a book of goods. And, you got to know how to sell and what makes athletes tick. You know what I mean? And we talked about, I think the word ego always has a negative, like, attachment to it, but we all have an ego. It's just a matter of how big it is. And you want that athlete to feel like, man, these guys, they value me. You know what I mean? And you gotta, everyone needs a little massage in here and there. You know what I mean? Not just the skill guys. So you gotta know what makes a guy tick. And once you learn that, but that's the thing, Z, you can't just do it once. Like I can't just, hooray, Nico's coming. Come on, guys, I need you here. And then we sign him, and that's like, all right, Nico, I'll see you in the fall. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to woo a guy, right? But you gotta be for real. Like you have to be authentic. Like they gotta know, like, wow, these guys really like me. And you gotta do shit throughout the year too for guys. You know what I mean? It can't just be, you can't treat them like a piece of meat, man. Like you guys know, it's like, I don't want to just woo a guy, yay, and then all of a sudden it's like, fuck these guys, they play for me and that's it. They got no choice. You know what I mean? And if you really care about the guys, the boys, you got to make them feel that way. You got to make them feel that way the whole time. It can't just be
you
a one and done thing.
ASAP. You need a team in the ECHL, bro. I'll come play for you, man. I think that's the biggest problem with the ECHL and guys who are, full-time ECHLers per se, or have spent many years in the ECHL is, coaches will call you and tell you what you want to hear, but at the end of the day, this is a league that they can release you at any time, at any given moment, right? It's not even a week-to-week contract. You can be there for one day, half a day, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
So it's something where once they get you to sign, once you sign that dotted line, then sometimes that does happen often, what you just mentioned, right? Where it kind of goes away and it's like, whoa, where's all the love that I was getting before I signed? And so that's definitely something that happens in the minors a lot, I feel. More than in the NHL or in places where you have full year contracts. It's just the turnaround is so much, and so they don't really. It's not that they don't care about you, but they've done it
Yeah.
so many times that it's like they, so
It's robotic. You know what it is too, and it's so tough, man, because it is a business, and I think everybody kind of understands that. But at the same time, listen, I hate the old adage, oh, it's just business. Don't worry about it. Business is personal. You know what I mean? For me, at least, like if I deal with someone, it's personal. Like if you wrap your arm around me and vice versa, like in a business, like we're now brothers in a way. You know what I mean? So yes, don't get me wrong, it is business. Um, but yeah, man, I've never been a huge fan of the revolving door thing. I get it. I mean, the East Coast League, obviously, you got American League affiliates, NHL affiliates. Funny thing, when we started the team, the Trashers in '04, the Bridgeport Sound Tigers were just a few years in existence. And the Islanders reached out to us to be their affiliate with Bridgeport. And we said no. Because our thing was, I don't need you pulling, we don't want a revolving door. You're not going to tell us when, we're calling up Z now. You know what I mean? They we didn't want to be told you're not telling us who you're taking. Like, these are our guys. And we'd never, listen, don't get me wrong. We never hold a guy back. If we get calls, listen, one of our best skilled players the first year of the Trashers, his name is Blake Belfay. He's from Framingham, Massachusetts. He scored the first goal in Trasher history. Unbelievable player. He got a call, I think, to play in Bridgeport or Hartford in the American League. And we said, hey, we can't hold this guy back and be selfish. Listen, go do your thing, Blake. And he went. But we never wanted a direct affiliation because I'm not a big guy with the revolving door and who's in this week, who's in. I think it's, and I get it, it's business, but I was always big on, and my dad too is, you know what? You be transparent with guys. If there's something you don't like, you don't hold it in as management. And Nico's pissing me off. I'll let it go, let it go. And then something else, a lot of it's miscommunication half the time. And then it blows and, fuck it, wave them. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's just a lot of guys, it's a rat race, guys. You know how it is. Everyone's looking to get to that next step. Me, I know what it takes to get to like heights, but I don't want to be that guy. I'm good with, I'm not trying to act like I'm settled or I'm satisfied because I always got a chip on my shoulder. I got a lot to prove, but I don't need to be the top NHL agent or the top, boxing manager with 100 guys under me. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be really good at my niche and, quality over quantity. But it's a rat race. It's like politics. Everyone is, how do I get to the American League? Okay. How do I bump this coach to, now I'm with the Marlies. How do I get to here? How do I get to it's a rat race. You know what I mean? And what guys don't realize is to get to the top, you know what? A lot of times it's just being authentic and being real and trustworthy. And that's only half the time, that's the only attributes you really need and just to show up. And, but a lot of these guys, they try to reinvent the wheel. It's nuts.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I
I got a few questions, but Z, you got some? I got the rapid ones that I was gonna do.
Oh, you can hit them with the rapid ones?
Well, you can go. Should I?
That's good.
Well, I just have a few questions. Like, they can be long answers or short, but the best Trasher fight. What was the best Trasher fight?
Oh boy, man, that's a loaded ass question, man. God. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna name one that no one would know. Cause like in the documentary, it featured only a few characters from the team, right? You can't, in 2 seasons, you guys know how many guys on our roster. So I'm gonna go with a random one. He's a current NHL agent right now, Ryan Barnes. He played in the American League. We signed him, and it was actually Military Appreciation Night against Adirondack. And this guy, Center Ice, beat the dog shit out of this guy on Adirondack. And Barnesy was a tough kid. Don't get me wrong. A lot like Uzi, he did everything. He put up points. He could fight if needed, but he wasn't known like as like a real serious killer, you know, but he had a thing with this guy. I don't even want to say the other guy's name because I'm just respectful like that. He beat the dog shit out of this, and I'll never forget, the crowd went insane. Center ice in his camo jersey, military. I don't know why that just came to my mind. I'll go with that one.
Oh
I'm gonna
man, I
find
love
out.
that, bringing something that's not in the documentary. And he's an NHL agent and he played that way. Maybe I'll give him a call. But
Hey, listen, man, we'll make it. He's a great guy, man. Great guy for sure.
and all right, next one I got is your favorite trasher of all time. Or is that too hard?
God.
It's like picking your favorite.
At the end of the day, I'll say this. In the 2 seasons we had with the dozens and dozens of players we had, I'll put it to you like this. There was literally only one player I didn't like. And I'm not gonna say his name, but I'll say I liked everyone, but I gotta go Brad Wingfield just because he's still like a brother to me. We've been in contact, you know, after we lost the team, you know, before all the documentary and all this other stuff. He's always been he's cut from your guys' cloth, man. He's a solid guy, man. He's coaching a big junior team this coming fall in God damn, Gibson's BC. He's gonna be a great coach, man. He's a great coach, and he's like a brother, that guy.
And I got a question that I'm sure a lot of people want to know. I think at the time it probably didn't matter because your dad had such a successful trashing business, trashing company. But was the business side of things profitable with the Trashers?
Hell no. It was not. It was, listen. Allegedly, I didn't deal with money, so I'll say that. But I'll say this. No, the first 2 seasons definitely weren't. Um, I would say though, you know, in a perfect world, if we kept going, I think it would have turned around. You know what I've learned too, man, is a lot of businesses. You'll see name brand businesses, clothing lines or whatever. People don't realize at the end of the year, guys are turning in losses, you know? So like it's crazy to think, like, people think like if you're operating, it's gotta be a profit, and it's not. You know, the Trashers, definitely the first 2 years weren't, but I think honestly, the way things were going trajectory wise, I think by year 5, we could have probably broke even or turned a profit. But again, you know, the luxury was my dad did have a very successful, you know, waste management companies. So, you know, it wasn't like we were depending on that to live, thankfully. But no, the first 2 years were definitely, there was a lot of great pregame. You know, you should have saw some of the post-game meals these guys were eating. They were eating like kings over there. So it was definitely, different, but no, that's the other thing. I mean, me and my dad, we never drew a check. Um, you know, we were just focused on making sure the guys were good, the coaches were good. You would hear horror stories, you know, guys coming over from teams like, you know, I didn't get paid for 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my check bounce. I mean, we never, ever wanted to be a team in that situation where the guys weren't taken care of.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds like a good place to play.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, it begs the question, you know, how long could have lasted that way? Because you know, one thing about money is it will go.
Yeah.
It was just like guys were eating crab legs, and I was just like, where the hell? Sometimes I'd walk in and I'm like, where did they get this stuff? You know what I mean? Dude, it was wild, man. It was they were but listen, at the end of the day, we just, like you said, Z, you said it, man. Like, how do you attract a guy to play for you? Sometimes it's the amenities. Sometimes it's not so much the paycheck, it's taking care of a guy and knowing you're gonna be eating like in a friggin' suite in Vegas every night. I mean, it was insane, bro. It was really nuts.
Oh, that's unreal.
What happened when it was all over and the team folded and your dad has what he liked to call a disagreement with the government And uh, what were the next few months like for you, for AJ Galante? You know, everything just kind of
Uh,
came crashing down on you.
yeah. Well, I don't think it matters what age you are, but especially as a young kid, um, you think it's gonna go on forever, right? You know what I mean? It's like we had 2 years. Our second year we made it to the finals. We lost in the finals, but we were finding a groove. You think you're on top of the world in a way, especially locally. You know what I mean? You just think like this train's never gonna stop. And just like that, you just wake up and it's over. And to be honest with you, we lost a team. I was just shy of my 20th birthday, so I was still a teenager. And I still had 2 more years of college to finish. I promised my mom I would finish college. Um, I went into I hate using the word because it's like a 2024 word, but it's true. I went into a pretty deep depression, man. I just stopped watching hockey. I wanted nothing to do with hockey. My last 2 years of college, man, my dad was actually on house arrest, which he'll tell you was worse than actual prison because in the house, there's temptation, right? You think you're home, I could just get in the car and leave. I mean, those last 2 years were horrible. From '06 to '08 was tough because I had to finish my last 2 years of college. There was no trashers. You lose that adrenaline. We talked
Yeah.
about losing an identity, right? I felt like I lost my identity. Um, I had nothing to compete with anymore. Like I just love the hunt, man. I love to compete. I love that. And I lost it. Um, my dad was home, which was weird because he would work. He's a workaholic too. So he was home all day. It was weird. Um, and then, yeah, man, my dad, then unfortunately had to go away in October. You want to talk about weird? He went away. He reported for prison October 15th, 2008, which was 4 years to the day of the first ever Trasher game, October 15th, 2004. I
Yeah.
don't know if the feds planned that or not, but it was pretty funny looking back if they planned it that way. But yeah, man, it was tough. It was really like um I lose a longtime girlfriend. It was like everything seemed like it was falling apart. And you know what? Frankly, it was, but I've always been humble and you go to visit my father and you're in the visiting room and you see people in the same situation as you. And I'm like, who am I to complain and cry about it when people are going through the same stuff, if not worse than me? Um, so I kind of, you got to pep yourself up sometimes, you got to motivate yourself, talk yourself up. And like I said, boxing came into my life in 2011 and I honestly feel like I jumped at the opportunity because I was just missing something from losing the Trashers. And here I am, still doing the boxing thing. And now hockey's kind of in a weird way, in a weird form, came back to my life. And I don't know, man. I'm a big guy with signs like why is hockey back in my life? So I don't know, man. I always feel like I got something to prove, a chip on my shoulder, and we'll see where it shakes out, man. My life is very random. I thrive on the chaos of it all. So we'll see what happens, man. You just never know.
But no, yeah, definitely. And in those times, I just want to ask because, like for hockey players, I'd say that's really similar to getting an injury and not being able to play because you had a project that you were working on every day and you were building towards, and then it all goes away. It's like, as a man, I think you always need a project that you're building and you're trying to grow and that's part of the reason why we have this podcast. It's like in the off season, you're building your body, sure, but you want a project, you want something that you're building for yourself,
Yeah,
something that you can show later on, like, I've been working, I've been doing things, I haven't just been sitting on my ass type of thing. You know what I mean?
absolutely. And I said it, man. I think I realized, man, it's like my one of my favorite movies of all time is actually The Dark Knight, the Joker movie, with Heath Ledger as the Joker. You know what I mean?
Best opening scene ever.
Listen, Heath Ledger said something, and I swear to God, that movie came out, I believe, in '08. And I was in a funk, and I swear to God, this may sound like I'm just saying it, but Heath Ledger said a line as the Joker in that movie. And I realized, oh my God, I'm the friggin' Joker, man. I'm like the Joker because he said a line. He's with Harvey Dent, Two-Face in the hospital room. And they're struggling there, they're talking, and I don't want to botch the line, but he basically said, Harvey Dent said, "Oh, this was part of your plan, Joker." And Joker says, "Do I really look like I'm a guy with a plan?" And he said, "You know what I am?" He goes, "I'm a guy who's chasing." He goes, "I'm a dog that chases cars and tires. I wouldn't know what to do if I got the tire. I just do things. You know what I mean?" And man, it's a lot like my life is like. I don't have many skills, Nico and Z. Like I just do things. And it's like I seem to do best under pressure and in chaos. And I don't know if that's a normal thing, but I just realized and have come to accept that I'm just not afraid to leap. If there's an opportunity and I can do it, I'm not embarrassed to fail. I just do shit, man. And it's definitely not the greatest business plan to tell someone, you know what I mean? Like, hey, just do things. I wouldn't, that's definitely not a piece of advice I just give loosely to like a kid coming out of college. But I just, I don't know, man. I just do stuff. And I love the chase, man. I love the chase. I love being scared. I love, I told someone recently, I go with the ideas that scare me the most because there's something about that fear that keeps you going, man. Like you're in
Oh,
the jungle and it's like, dude, I get so many of the things I do, I'm scared to death over. And I don't know what I'm exactly scared of because I know I could just stop at any time. But maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe it's I don't want to, even though I'm not afraid to fail, I don't want to fail. I don't know, man, but I've never, I don't know what it is. I've just never been afraid to take the leap and
man,
whatever happens,
it
happens, you
makes you
know?
it makes you feel alive, right? It's one of those
Yeah.
things, during the season, when I know I'm gonna fight someone that's tough, I always visualize the night before, right? Like you never
Yep.
know who you're gonna fight, but I visualize just in case. If there's a guy
Yeah.
that does or is willing to fight me. And when I'm visualizing in bed, man, my whole body, I swear, it's like I get cold. I start shaking.
Yeah.
I'm trembling as it like a little scared kid, but it's
Yeah.
I tell myself it's adrenaline mixed with fear, mixed with excitement. But
Yeah.
literally, I'll be visualizing a game and then I'll visualize myself dropping the gloves and the shaking begins. And I'm visualizing the whole fight and I'm shaking the whole time. And it's like
Yeah.
when it's done, when I'm done, like I stop shaking and I'm like, I try to get back in. Like I try to go back and visualize the fight again and just try to get that feeling again. It's just this feeling that's it's inexplainable.
You're
No.
comfortable at being uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, talking about a Batman movie, I love all Batman movies, but I remember after Dark Knight, it's the one with Bane and he's trapped. Bane has him trapped and everyone's trying to get out of this like this hole they're in and everyone's got like this bungee cord and I remember Bruce Wayne's like, nah, take the bungee. That fear was what made him through the leap, man. It's just a chase, man, and when you identify and recognize those things, it really helps you. You know what I mean? So but yeah, it's just crazy, man.
Man, AJ, this has been unbelievable. I got one more thing though. I don't know if Z has one more thing before we close out, but I want to know what your dad Jimmy's up to these days because I was watching that podcast that you had him on. By the way, unbelievable podcast, and just man,
Thanks, man.
the way he carries himself and speaks, it's just like that's a man that's respected everywhere he goes. Just like soft spoken. I almost had to change the volume when you and Ames were talking versus when
Yeah.
he was talking. I had to turn it up a little because he's so soft spoken. But one of the things he said was he was so mad about Amesbury getting suspended that he was thinking about calling his brothers. He said, I'm thinking about calling my brothers in Quebec and seeing if we
Yeah.
can start he said, for lack of better words, goon league. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I was already thinking, Le Trashers de Danbury in the LNAH.
Well,
That would
I'll
be
say this.
unbelievable.
I'll say this. First of all, you talk about the chase, right? My dad is 71 years old. He looks younger than me, and he works every day. He's got a piece of an oil company here, and he's on a oil truck every morning at 5 a.m. Why? I don't know, but I'm realizing we're a lot more alike than I thought. But I'm telling you, that generation, man, they'll just work till they die. That's just how it's going to be. I don't know at 71 if I'll be doing that, but who knows? I could be do something. But he's a workaholic, man. It's just, but it's inspiring because I got to keep up with it somehow. Because I mean, I'm going to be 38. I can't let the old man outwork me, right? So, but it's funny you say the Quebec because one of the things that used to piss the United Hockey League off was we refused, and we got fined for it, but we refused to play preseason games. Why? Just because we just felt like not playing preseason games, and we thought it'd be funny, and it pissed everyone off. So we would get fined. So, we always try to like find ways around things, and they'd always put rules in midway through the year or off season. They were like Danbury rules. So I remember going into the second year, they upped the fine like crazy if we didn't play preseason. So we're like, damn, they kind of got us by the balls here. We gotta play a preseason game. The fine was gonna be insane if we didn't. So what our lawyer told us was, yeah, you have to play a preseason game, but nowhere in the language does it say it has to be a UHL team. You know what I'm saying? So we were devising a plan. We were gonna have a weekend series, and it was gonna be dubbed preseason exhibition with God, I forget the team in the Quebec League, but they were crazy back then too. I want to say it was Laval or something like that.
Laval, that's where I played this year.
So we were gonna play one game there, and then we're gonna have a travel day in between, and they played one game in Danbury. Now, you and I both know, especially back then, those games would have sold out. Like those preseason games. So we were like, listen, let's piss them off. Let's play preseason, but not against anyone in our league. They can't say anything about it legally. And we're going to make a couple bucks because the games are going to sell out at home. And we piss everyone off. It was a perfect plan. And it ended up not coming to fruition. I don't know why. We ended up playing a preseason game. I forget against who, maybe Elmira. But yeah, man, it was funny. But I always said one of my goals, with the Trashers was, I always had this vision that we were going to get kicked out of the league. I always felt like if we kept going, man, I really had this intuition, like we're going to get kicked out of the league one day. So I always said our backup plan should be, why can't we create an American conference of the LNAH, right? Let's have, they got their teams in Quebec, Montreal, wherever. Let's have an American conference, Danbury, going up north, Maine, New Hampshire, and that was something that was legitimately going to be talked about. Who knows, man, the what if game, what would have happened? But I always had this fear that we were going to get kicked out. And what were we going to do if we got kicked out? And I said, let's just go to the Quebec League and find a way to start a small little Northeast American conference.
Man, that's a great idea. They do have this new rule, unfortunately, where not everyone can play. So I was watching that podcast, and Amesbury said he can't play, and that's right.
Yeah,
he can't play. You can only play if you were born in Quebec or if you played in the QMJHL.
Even better than now is more than ever. You create an American conference, man, in the Northeast, quick ride to Quebec, and fills a lot of slots, man. But who knows, man? Like I said, see, I don't like talking to guys like you because my mind starts going. I start wanting to do this shit. So I'm just gonna say, who knows? We'll see what happens.
Oh man, well, thank you so much. I mean, this is almost 2 hours of just shooting it with you, man. This has been unbelievable. And we just can't thank you enough for coming on, man. And just, yeah, thank you, AJ. This has been awesome.
No, I can't thank you guys enough, man. I really respect what you guys are doing. And hey, Nico, man, I saw that footage of what you did to that Timmy Kent kid a few years ago at SoFlo. And I think he's coming for your ass this summer. So you better keep that head on a swivel.
Yeah,
He
hey
rocks
man,
the
there's a
shit
lot
out
of guys I'm worried about this season, but not TK. He's not one of them. But he is an absolute character, and he's a rat.
Well, listen, that the Cherometa, he seems like he's got an unfair advantage. He's got all the Russians and stuff. Like I feel like he's got like all like the skill guys and but they were saying you loaded up pretty good last year. So I can't wait to see what happens.
My team's always loaded, because I'm the GM, so we auto have the toughness set. So I just recruit pure skill guys. We got
Beautiful.
Zadorov, Lomberg, myself.
Oh, dude, Zadorov. Listen. You talk about learning who's who and what's what. He's caught my eye this playoffs. That's a trasher right there. I like that fucking guy.
Oh,
yeah.
He's an awesome dude. You'd love to talk to him. He's an awesome guy. Just
Oh man. Well,
listen,
guy. Listen, all the SoFlo guys, man, I love you all, but if I had to pick a team, I'm going with Team Sheriff. So let's see what happens, man. I'm excited, man. I gotta figure my way down there one day because I just want to see this rink they were talking about. It looks sick, man.
It's the grittiest rink in North America. And Zach Solo, actually, he comes down, he plays games here and there. We don't fly him in. You gotta fly yourself in, but we don't fly him in yet. But Z came down.
Hey, it's gonna get. Listen, I'm telling you right now, and I'm not blowing smoke. I'm telling you. And I was talking to Mark and the Codfather over there. I'm telling you right now, you guys got something. And just like everything else, it's brick by brick. Yeah. But I see it, man. Like sometimes, like you said, you envision the fights. And I'm telling you, I see you guys got something. And I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what goes on this summer, man.
Oh, man. Well, thanks again, man. Episode 108 of the Buzz Pod featuring AJ Galante, man. Thank you so much.
Damn, 108. We got to catch up. I think we're only on 21. So we you guys got to take a break. We got to catch up to you guys.
Hey, we've been there. You got all season to catch up. We're off season only. So
well, that's good. We're gonna catch up. We're gonna definitely catch up. So 100%.
Damn right. And I'll have to come on. We'll have to come on sometime.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. Hey, listen, man, I'd love to see you and Diamond Hands on the same team. That's a 1-2 friggin' punch right there. You never know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people would forfeit games, I think.
That's the name of the game, brother. Beat them before you even get on the ice.
Damn right. Thanks again, bro.
Of course.